Before we get into today's episode, I just want to give a quick shout out to my new sponsor, Inflow Finance. I'm genuinely happy to support them because I've worked with them myself. Inflow is a specialist bridging and development finance lender, and what really sets them apart is that they are 100% funded privately with no credit committees, fewer restrictions, and a much faster decision-making process. In my experience, when Inflow issue terms, they rarely change, and they're genuinely always ready to lend, which makes a huge difference when you're trying to keep a deal moving, when funding a development project, or when your current loan is due to expire or has already come to term. If you are a developer, investor, or broker looking for refurbishment, development, or bridging finance, then Inflow is the right lender for you because they truly understand property. Do reach out to them via their website, inflowfinance.com, or scan the QR code below. Hi, welcome to another episode of Passion for Property with me, Mani Chopra. And today's guest is very much an underrated dark horse in the world of property development. He is a very creative property developer and excels in doing win-win property deals. He is definitely someone that I've been looking forward to speaking about. And welcome, Toby Spanier.
Thank you.
Thank you, Toby, for coming. Really appreciate you taking your time out on a Saturday, especially. So I'd like to start off maybe by talking about your life before property, if you may, because I know you've been doing property for like 7-8 years, and you've achieved a lot in this very, very short space of time. But just a little bit, taking you back to what was life like and how and what inspired you to get into property.
Okay, so I did Greek and Latin at university. That was Oxford University back in the 90s.
Like the Oxford University?
Yeah. And then I basically joined a firm as a management consultant, and I did that for 25 years. So that was my first career. But the whole time I was frustrated that I couldn't be as commercial as I wanted to. Working in big organisations are very, very risk averse. And often I would have ideas that would make the client more money, but we couldn't even recommend it because there was too much reputational risk in doing anything. It wasn't really risk. It was just doing something that wasn't typically done.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily more risky. It was just something that people didn't know about.
So it wasn't like the norm, as you said.
Exactly. So I found it a bit sort of stultifying and a bit sort of constraining. And I always wanted to do property, but I was always too scared to get started. I was always too scared that my first deal would be a disaster and I'd lose all the money. And it took me 10 years from deciding I wanted to do property to actually buy my first property.
And in those 10 years, was it just you were thinking about it, you did some education? What was going on at that point in your time? Because it was a long time to think about property and doing it, but not actually doing it. So what was going on in your head at that point?
I think what it was if you put a crab in a bucket, a crab will just climb out the bucket. Yeah. But if you put a crab in a bucket with other crabs, the other crabs will pull that crab back in. And so people around you who aren't in any
business,
exactly, they're out of a misplaced sense of love going to go, well, why do you want to buy another property? You've already got a property. It's very risky. It could all go wrong. Why are you doing that? You've got a good job. Why throw it all in? So I think the real one change was surrounding myself with people who did property. And this is my first tip for people. You just need to be in an environment where there are people transacting who are buying properties, and then you realize it's not so scary, it's not so risky, other people can do it, it's actually normal in that environment.
Yeah. And so what was it, networking events or
exactly, I mean,
YouTube? What were you doing?
The UK is brilliant. There's so many networking events. You could spend pretty much every day of the week going to a networking event. And I went before COVID up to 7 a month. It started to get too much, but the point is just go to one local event that's near to you once a month. And that just gets you in the right mindset. It really was the mindset that made the change. And all of a sudden, the fear disappeared because I spent time with people who were just doing this day in, day out. It wasn't this scary thing anymore.
And you got inspired, right? For people, you saw them doing it, and they probably were in similar situations like you, possibly in a job, and then they, made the move, and you thought, well, if they can do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I meet people with a lot less money than me, who I didn't think were particularly smart.
Not from Oxford University either.
And I thought, well, if they can do it, why am I wasting time not getting started?
Absolutely. And that's amazing. So you eventually mustered the courage. So right now you are in property. You made that decision. What was your first deal?
So my first deal was, I was in a bit of a rush, okay?
Because you waited long enough.
Because I waited too long, right? So you're always taught to find motivated sellers. I was a motivated buyer. This is not a good thing. So everything I bought was like basically at asking price or just a tiny bit below. And I decided, I need to catch up. So let's not do buy to let. Let's go straight into the house and multiple occupancy thing. And I worked out, I remortgaged a property. And I worked out I had enough money in my investment area to buy 6 houses. So off I went and I bought 6 houses. How
long did that take you to do that?
Oh, that was probably the first 4 months.
But probably just by research and numbers.
I decided on the area, okay, and then I ran out of money. But then I started to get creative, and I worked out that you can get 85% loan to value. And so I thought, I can buy a couple more. Then I ran out of more money. I thought, perhaps I can get my letting agent to pay for all the furniture because they're going to benefit once the thing is furnished. They then started to become an investor in my business. And so in the first 6 months and 27 days, I'd bought 9 properties. And I hadn't even finished the refurb on the first one. I was just convinced this strategy was going to work really well. So
you were back to back. Literally, pipeline was just out there, like really quick.
Yeah, I remember that. So the first one I bought on the 13th of October, 2017. Then I bought another one on the 28th. Then I bought 3 just before Christmas. Then another 2 in January, and then another one in April and May. You know, it got a bit crazy.
So there's no stopping Toby here, right?
No. And the thing is, often with the lenders, it's computer says no, and you've got to send in more information. But I got to the stage that computer said yes, because all the information on the system was up to date. So I'd apply for a mortgage, and like 3 weeks later, mortgage offer came through. It got pretty slick. They didn't need any more information. Everything was up to date. So it just made it easier to keep on buying.
Amazing. And so you are here owning almost 9 properties within a space of 12 months. How did you fund the sort of refurb of them, and what was your strategy? Like, I know they're HMOs, but were you buying 3 beds, 4 beds?
There were simple, inexpensive 3-bed houses with a front to back, from the front of the property to the back of the property, sort of living sitting room, and very simple strategy: put a partition wall up and make 2 bedrooms downstairs, and there are already 3 bedrooms upstairs. So very basic strategy, nothing particularly clever about it.
But clever in its own right, because you're spending less and you're getting rooms in this existing space without having to do loft conversion, single story. And that's the sort of thing that takes time.
Yeah, a very basic strategy.
But 5-room HMOs?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And you got good rents and managed by local letting agents?
The advice I got from letting agents was don't just do the vanilla thing. Don't stand out from anybody else. I didn't really agree with it, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I thought, well, they know what they're talking about. I'll just do what they say. Should I put en suites in? No, just get these things done as quickly as possible. So I kind of did that process. And of course, what I was doing is I hadn't really finished the first one by the time I'd already purchased the 9th one. So I was just replicating the same mistake 9 times because there was no learning curve. I hadn't seen how the first one was going to learn from it before doing the second one. So I would probably say it's a mistake to buy so many properties in such a short period of time without learning anything from the process.
Previous projects. But yeah, you have the good and the bad in this process. You actually did do really well by accumulating. And were you in your job while you were doing
full time? Yeah, I was full time in my job. It was all done very under the wire, so no one.
So weekends driving up to your investment patch.
Exactly.
Right. So you've got all these 9 properties. They're all fully rented. Decent cash flow, presumably?
Decent cash flow, but it's HMO. And the costs are higher than you expect.
Bills, you were paying all the bills?
Exactly.
Professionals or... Who were the tenants? Professionals? Or someone Universal Credit?
No, this was an area in Northamptonshire, so most were blue-collar workers.
Yeah.
Most were Eastern European. It's like a town with like loads of factories around it. So that was where the demand was.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've bought all these properties, you've got this cash flow coming in. Presumably you spent all your money by now. So what
Yes.
next?
Well, what next was I ran out of cash, right?
As you do.
And then I didn't buy anything for another year and a half because I had no money. I had overtraded, pushed myself, bought 9 properties when really I could have only afforded 6. But I was so convinced this strategy was going to work perfectly. And the 10th property I only bought when I realised that I had a pension with my employer and I could transfer it into a pension for my limited company. And that gave me the additional cash to then buy my 10th property in cash.
So you transfer, I think it's a 50% loan back you can do, right? So you loaned 50% to your limited company that owns all these properties, which was all previously bought under the same limited company, holding company or whatever, and you bought another, your 10th one.
Yeah, it's the first time I got an up valuation on rather than a down valuation, because the surveyor who had came to value the building had valued it for a previous buyer who then pulled out at a much higher price than I was buying the property at. So I actually got an up valuation, which meant I knew that I'd created equity on day one, which is a good feeling. It's like, made a mistake 9 times, perhaps I should do something slightly different on the 10th time.
Titans is a property education and collaborative platform, which is effectively a community of property professionals, investors, developers who like to come together, connect, engage, and help grow each other's businesses. Find out more, teamtitans.co.uk. So the up valuation was at the time when you bought it, not at the time when you finished or you exited.
No, when I bought it, yeah.
Yeah. And then same 5-bedroom HMO model?
Yeah, yes, the different was I was overseeing the build. I went a bit more to town. I made it into 6-bed. We had lots of steels. I wanted to do my own thing because I was basically following the advice from the letting agent. And now I felt I could just do my own thing and develop it the way I wanted to.
Right. So slightly different, but now you've got 10 HMOs, which is a great number. Probably good cash flow as well, but you still got your job. So you've got, good income coming in, presumably. What was your next step then? What happened then?
What was my next step from that? My next step from that was...
And you still kept that job, kept your job?
Yeah. And I advise people to keep the day job. It makes you super mortgageable. It means all the profit you're making from the business, the property business, can be reinvested in the property business. And, these are delicate, fragile things, businesses in their first few years.
Absolutely.
So you want to give them that helping hand, and not taking any money out of the business is a great way of just helping it
grow,
cement in its first few years.
Scale up, right?
Yeah.
But also, as you said, the stress levels, you're managing your stress levels. Because can you imagine if you've quit your job as well, and then you're not getting the cash flow that you thought you would get, especially if you're in a good job, you just can't, your lifestyle would be affected, your family would be affected. A lot of level of stress on you, probably not a great thing in overall anyway, right?
Totally. And, you can't just break a corner of a building and then go and buy a loaf of bread with it. It's a very illiquid asset. So it really makes sense to keep the day job. And the other thing about property is it's incredibly slow. The only thing fast is viewing the property, making an offer and getting an offer accepted. Everything else is like glacially slow. So you don't need to have a lot of time.
Yeah.
You just need a little bit of time to go view a property, and then everything else you can do remotely.
It's funny, isn't it, you say that, because what comes to my mind is we're amazing at these portals that are out there, especially now in today, not back in maybe 2017, but now you got like 10 different portals for different properties. Even you've got tech, which scrape through those portals, find the motivated buyers and motivated sellers rather, and you can do all that. But when it comes to the actual transaction, we're like prehistoric. 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks,
it's
whatever.
Brilliant, because if you're in full-time employment and you agree to buy a property, the average mortgage takes 5 months. So in a rising market, at the point that you buy the property, it's already worth more than what you agreed. So it's very forgiving. And it gives you a lot of time to plan.
Yeah.
And if you're busy in a day job and you're not buying for 5 months, you can work out exactly what you want to do with the property. You can get quotes. You can find the right builders, decorators, support staff to help you on that journey. And so you don't need to be full-time. In actual fact, it's much better that you're not full-time. It's much better you keep your mortgageability and keep earning money.
Full-time and property, yeah. No, exactly. So,
and I did have a plan. I'd been employed for 20 years, and I decided I was going to leave after 25 years.
Right. So you had 5 years.
I had a 5-year plan. I decided I wasn't going to tell anybody that I had this plan. And all of a sudden, it made life a little bit more exciting, because if you're playing a game, but no one else knows the rules of the game, and you've invented the rules of the game, and everyone else doesn't even know they're in a game, then you're likely to win that game. So it was a great strategy. I was still fully employed, but I didn't really need the job anymore. The other thing I noticed, as soon as you don't need the job, suddenly you get good at it. So because I didn't need the job anymore, I had this income coming in from the rental portfolio. I got better at my job because I just had the bravery and the courage to say, this is what I think. And normally in corporates, people are too scared to say what they think, or they say things so sugar-coated that the message never gets up and never gets to where it's really needed. So I became more valuable to the firm at that point, where I didn't really need the firm anymore. But when your sole source of income is one employer, it's just too high risk to really say what you think.
To push the ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what basically happened was COVID happened, and I realised that I wanted something nearer to home. And I also realised perhaps this buy-to-let strategy is not such a bad idea. HMOs are very noisy, lots of moving parts all the time. Not really my kind of thing. Like, everyone's got an area of property that they need to focus on. And mine was more about thinking the strategy rather than actually doing the work on running it. So I thought, let's do some...
So yours is more, I'd say, strategic rather than operational. That's where your strengths, where you think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I decided to buy nearer to home.
Yeah.
And I was always told I had to go north because you can't afford to buy down south. Guess what? It's one of the big myths. And I was buying properties down south for the same amount of money that I was buying them up north. Just there are less of them, and they are a little bit more distressed. So I was buying more distressed type properties.
So like what? Again, potential for HMOs or just apartments?
Yeah,
or
so the first one I wanted to buy, I'd figured out I could make it into a 6-bed, 6-bath HMO. Fantastic. I've been doing this HMO thing. Let's step it up in a different location. And the day before I completed was when lockdown was announced. And I suddenly thought, perhaps this is not such a good idea to buy a house, rip everything out of it, and then find that the economy has stopped. Because at the time, we didn't know what things would be allowed to continue
how
and
long,
what things wouldn't.
we were in the dark.
So at that point, I thought, I think this is a bad idea to devalue the property by ripping things out and then not being able to do anything with it, and I'll have a mortgage on it. So I thought, perhaps I need to change my strategy. So I phoned up the council, who I'd met at a National Landlords Association like a year and a half ago. I said, do you have a scheme for like emergency housing that will continue regardless of what happens on COVID? Yes, we do. Do you have a need? Do you have a family at the moment that needs a property? Yes, we do. Okay, how long would that take? That it would be instant? I went, okay, let's just switch the strategy. So rather than doing an HMO, I did this incredibly light refurb, and a family that would otherwise have been homeless moved in, and I couldn't get any supplies at the time. So the reason the house was distressed was the previous renters had 8 dogs, but they didn't let them out of the house. So this is the sort of house that you wipe your feet on the way out rather than on the way in. So it was not a pleasant place to step into. But once you've removed all the carpets, open the windows,
the dog poop,
exactly, the smell dissipates. So I need to get new carpets, but I couldn't get new carpets because of COVID. So I just got scraps of carpets that were in the back of the warehouse. I got a pub carpet, the big swirls for the main room. Every room was a different coloured carpet, but it worked. It was fine. And this family moved in, and they just thought their Christmas had come early, and
amazing.
And it worked well for me. And then I realised, you know what, I'm getting income quicker. This is like taking 6 months less time to do. I've got a letting agent that I don't pay, who are called the council. I'm actually doing something which is a social good. Why don't I continue doing this? And so that's kind of what I did.
You can't start to continue to buy
distressed properties,
beds.
do them up, and then sort of hand them over to a council tenant. And the council has so loved it that they gave me interest-free loans to do the properties up. So that enabled me to...
Interest-free loans from the council. That's the first I've ever heard of it. You obviously have a knack, Toby. As I said, the dark horse, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the second property I did, I did something that no one ever does, which is I invited the council to come and see the property when I finished. And they went, oh, we love this. We love this. Can you do this again? And by the way, we have this scheme where we are able to give interest-free loans to property investors. Would you like one? I went, yes, I'd like several, please. So I think I took about 7 loans from the council.
Just to do the light refurbs every time
you had to have bought the property and proved that you bought the property. So sometimes just the contract to sale is enough. And then they would lend you money to refurb them. So it worked really, really well.
Amazing. So were you buying, when you said distress, were they mortgageable?
Some were mortgageable, some weren't mortgageable. The first one I bought, amazingly, was mortgageable. The one with the dogs. Yeah. That was mortgageable because it had a cooker and it had a flushing toilet. Yeah. It is amazing what is considered mortgageable. Other ones I bought were definitely not mortgageable. But, that was okay. I had my SAS pension set up by then.
Right.
I was able to lend money for my pension to buy things in cash. I then didn't need the refurb budget because I knew the council would provide those funds. And then once it was all tickety-boo, all done up, there's no risk for a lender, then I brought bank finance in and obviously refinanced at its market value. Yeah.
That's amazing. And this was all literally, down the road from you?
Yeah, it was all about an hour 15 away from me. One of my big mistakes when I started was going up north, when you live down south, I live in Kent, 7 hours drive there and back. So you don't have very much time when you're there. And what that means is you don't see very much, but more importantly, you can't build relationships. And it's really important to build those relationships. And if you can't build relationships, then you have to rely on other people. And if you rely on other people and you're hardly ever there, year 1, they could be good. Year 2, they could be okay. Year 3, it's not good. Year 4,
they do get more tired.
Yeah,
very
year
quickly.
4, they've inserted a siphon into your bank account. They're just sucking money out. So, and that's because you're not there. Whereas when I started to change my area to somewhere I could go to, then I could be there more. Then it was worth me popping down to having a conversation with a letting agent, with a commercial agent, with a builder. You start to build relationships. And one of my best deals, I think, is my brickie said, I don't need my house anymore. I want to sell it. Could I sell it to you? I said, sure. And they said, well, it's got a tenant in it. And I know when tenants in properties, they're less valuable. So how much do you want for my property? I said, well, how much do you want? And he quoted a figure which was way below what I felt was the market rates, but he was happy. And the thing he wanted was the tenant to remain. He had a relationship with the tenants and he wanted the family to stay there. So I said, fine, yeah, I'm happy with that. And still my tenant several years on. So where did that come from? That just came from building a relationship, paying your suppliers and your builders and on time, doing what you said you were going to do. And eventually stuff starts coming to you.
So were you buying, so whether it was the Northamptonshire or whether it was the local ones, were you buying them straight from agents, just like portals?
Yeah, right move. Very
straight
simple.
Away. None of those direct to vendor or anything like that. Obviously, this one came to you with the bricky one, but generally it was finding them on the open market, putting offers in.
Yeah, I mean, on market, off market, there's not really any such thing as off market because most off market deals were deals that were on market and didn't sell. They then came off market and then someone sends a letter. Are you interested in selling? Yes, I am. I failed to sell earlier, but it's now an off market deal. And the buyer thinks this is a really good thing. But actually, a lot of these off market deals were just failed on market deals.
Absolutely.
So I often see things on Rightmove and then they disappear. And then a year later, I think, I've seen that property before. And yes,
Absolutely.
Things go in and out. So what I like about buying stuff that is on the market is, there's someone who wants to sell.
It's motivated, right? They are motivated. Whether they are highly motivated or they're just motivated, they still want to sell. They made that decision and they're on the market for selling, right? So here you are. You probably, it's like 2021, 2022 right now. We know what happened in 2022 with Liz Trust and all of that. So presumably you've got these 2 different portfolios, but nevertheless, they're pretty decent, I'm sure. You've got good cash flow coming from it. So what happens next?
So what happens next is I was enjoying doing these refurbs of dilapidated properties, but it was quite slow. It took quite a lot of time. So I thought perhaps I should buy a house that's been converted into flats. You often find, a flat per floor on a Victorian house, 3 or 4 stories. perhaps I should do that. And to mitigate my risk, I never bought anything for more than 200k. But I thought I need to spend a bit more if I'm buying something bigger. So I found a property on Rightmove. It was 300k. It was 4 flats. All the utilities are split, but it was all on one freehold title. And I thought, well, it's a bit more than I normally spend, but I'm getting 4 flats. So actually, economically, it works better than buying a house. But the vendor was retiring, and he had 2 blocks that he wanted to sell at the same time.
So and 4 and 8 flats.
8 flats. There was a house. There was then someone else's house, and then there was another house. So they're almost next to each other. There was just a house in between. And of course, I did not want to buy 8 flats. I didn't have the money to buy 8 flats. But the guy really, really was insistent. He wanted to retire, and he put a lot of pressure on me. Like, I actually agreed to buy 1 block, and it was agreed with the agent. And then the agent reneged on the deal because he wanted, the vendor wanted me to buy both. And I thought, okay, you want me to buy both? Fine. I haven't got the money. So the only way I could buy both is if we do something a bit more creative. And so I thought through lots of different options, but the option we settled on was, I said to the vendor, why don't I exchange on all these 8 flats? Why don't I become the landlord? I will pay you 100% of what you're currently getting. I will take over as landlords. I will
so
pay
they were
the
tenanted?
insurance. They're all tenanted.
And you were going to buy it with the tenants in
exactly.
situ.
And they were a bit tired, retiring landlords. So I said, look, why don't I exchange? Why don't I spend money improving these properties to make them more mortgageable? And once they're more mortgageable, the bank will lend me the money to complete. And I wanted a year, and the guy said, no, I'm only going to give you 6 months. Exchange would delay completion for 6 months, which wasn't enough time. So at the end of the day, there's no point fighting a vendor. If they want something, you want something else, it's not going to work. So I went, okay, fine. I'm happy with that. But if I need more time, could I extend on a monthly basis, and I'll pay you a penalty of £1,000 each house? So £2,000 additional each month.
Per month.
And the vendor goes, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's free money for him. And that was good for me because it just took all the risk out. Once you've exchanged, you have to give a date for completion. And if you don't complete on that date, you can be served notice. And if you don't pay it within 10 days...
2 weeks to serve notice.
Yeah, 10 working days, then you lose your deposit. And you have to pay consequential losses. If the property is then sold in auction for less than you agreed to buy it for, you have to pay for the difference.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So this ability to extend was actually quite cheap for me. For £2,000, I could extend each month. And actually, bridging costs would have been more than £2,000. And I'm getting the money coming in anyway. So I then said to the vendor, look, if I'm doing this property up, then there's no point there being, I think it was 600k for 300k for each block. Yeah. So the deposit would have been 60k. So, well, the 60k sitting with your solicitor isn't helping you, isn't helping me. Why don't I use that 60k to improve your property? And, the whole time before completion, all I'm doing is making your property more valuable. And I've exchanged. I have to complete on it. So we went, okay. So we exchanged for £1. I became the landlord. I paid him all the rent that he was currently getting. So I became the landlord. I started doing up the flats.
You asked the tenants to leave?
I did various different things. I did a lot of stuff on the communal areas to make them nicer. Yeah. And then some tenants would go and stay with their parents for a couple of weeks, come back, nice new kitchen. They were delighted because I didn't change the rents and they were getting a better property. They could see I was investing in the building, which the retiring landlord wasn't doing. So it was a good deal for them. I kind of worked with them. And I was able to put the rents up because a lot of them were on universal credit and didn't understand the rules and the system, didn't realise they were entitled to more money. So I was able to put up the rents and they were happy with that because it wasn't costing them anything. So again, I'm making the property worth more. And I got the lender, decided on the mortgage, so I got the lender to send a surveyor at the point of exchange who valued the properties as at the purchase price. But also they were asked to value the properties done up and with separate long leases. So it was just 2 freehold blocks, but I'd agreed with the vendor that I wasn't buying 2 freehold blocks. I was buying 8 long leases and 2 freeholds, two freeholds. Something that cost the vendor nothing. I did I paid for all the work,
Legals.
all the legal work. So very easy for the vendor to give that to me, but it created value.
I just want to give a quick shout out to my new sponsor, Inflow Finance. I'm genuinely happy to support them because I've worked with them myself. If you are a developer, investor, or broker looking for refurbishment, development, or bridging finance, then Inflow is the right lender for you because they truly understand property. Do reach out to them via their website, inflowfinance.com, or scan the QR code below.
And so the surveyors, the bank surveyors, value the properties at 600, but also value them at 860, done up with the benefit of these leases. Yes. And so the bank will lend 75% of 860. Normally banks will only lend 75% of the purchase price. But if you can demonstrate that you've invested in the building, you've increased the value, you've done things. So I have bought well, I have refurbished it, and also I'm buying leases, long leases as opposed to freeholds, which
the
also
sum of the whole. There's a thing, right? Separately, they're worth a lot more. Separate leases than the sum of the whole or something. There's a saying.
The reason why the vendor could not sell the property is people don't want 8 flats.
Yeah.
People want 1 flat. So you've got a very small market. And as soon as you've created these leases, it's better for the lender as well, because they know if you don't pay, they can sell these flats individually.
Flats, yeah.
And also for the RIC surveyor, there's no comparators of 8 flats that were sold in that street in the last 3 months.
Because they were generally houses.
Yeah. But there's loads of comparators of 1-bedroom flats. So then you've got more comparators, therefore you remove the risk for the surveyors, therefore you get higher valuations. So what I agreed with the bank was I was going to borrow 75% of the open market value on the day of completion. That was 860, so they lent me £655,000. I only needed 600,000 to buy the property, and then the other 55 grand paid for legal fees, stamp duty,
refurb,
the lease, creating the leases,
and the refurb.
And I also got a little bit of money left in my bank account at the end of the day. So it's I had to fund the refurb myself.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So you spent the 60 grand initially.
Yeah. So it was just a more efficient way. And of course, on the day of completion, at the end of the day of completion, I've now got 8 flats. I don't need to do anything to them. The refurb has happened. They are tenanted. They are income generating. I can just leave them in the portfolio, move on to the next deal.
Amazing. That is actually, you've incorporated a lot of different interesting concepts here, right? So you've bought it at market value, although, but technically, yes, it is market value. Then you've done vendor finance, which, you've also got the higher value, which I think is quite unusual, and I think that's difficult. So did you go through a special broker, a special lender, or was it just an ordinary bank on the high street? I mean, you may not want to reveal your bank.
One of the challenger banks. I mean, anybody listening to this podcast could do this strategy. It's
but the interesting angle was the vendor finance, right?
Yeah.
You didn't end up
what's interesting was I agreed with the agent to buy 1 block for 294,000, so 6 grand below asking. And the vendor wasn't happy with that and wanted me to buy both. And there was all this argy-bargy going backwards and forwards, and he just wasn't agreeing to anything. And I thought, there's no point arguing. He wants 600, and perhaps these properties are worth 600.
Yeah.
Because 75 grand a flat is cheap in an area where flats go for 100k. So, okay, I had to pay 6 grand more because I had to agree to asking price. But for that 6 grand more, I got the vendor to agree an exchange with delayed completion where I could use the deposit funds to refurbish the property. I got the vendor to agree that I wasn't buying 2 freeholds, I was buying 8 long leases. And that increased the value by about 15% of the property. I know that because the RIC surveyor put that in their calculations. I also got the ability to take control of the property, put the rents up, and use that increased rents to help with the refurb. So I was using the vendor as a bridger, but without an entry fee, an exit fee, a valuation fee, an application fee. And without interest.
500 documents that you need to provide.
Exactly. And the cost of finance was 0. Yeah. Because all I was doing was using the money from the property to pay the vendor.
Very clever. So did you think, wow, so basically you had pretty much no money of your own left in the deal and you're making a cash flow, so it's infinite returns?
If I bought it traditionally, I would have had to put in 150 grand as a deposit, and then I'd have to put all the money in for the refurb. This was a much more efficient way of doing it.
Absolutely.
And it created equity on day one.
Very, 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 very interesting and very clever in many ways, I think, because you've got
But
incorporated.
only because I couldn't do the deal unless there was something creative.
Yeah. And did you learn this at a course or a networking event? Where did you get the idea of the vendor finance? You may have probably come across it at...
I'd heard of this concept of open market value, so completing on the open market value. It's very common within sort of more commercial spaces than residential. So I knew it's theoretically possible. I had some, property advisors that I talked it through. I tried all different sorts of strategies. It took quite a long time to come up with what eventually was the solution. I thought about buying one block and exchanging on the other, and then redoing one up, and then using the funds. It was just a bit too complicated. This was cleaner and better for the vendor.
And win-win. It worked for you, it worked for the vendor.
Exactly.
The agent was happy, the tenants were happy. So all in all, an amazing deal, actually. So was that your new strategy then? You've done two different, very successful strategies in its own right. Now you've got this third, very creative one now. So what were your thoughts going, and what were you thinking about then? More of these?
Yeah, what I worked out was it's still hard work to take the bank surveyor and get them to agree that a property in 6 months suddenly becomes worth 50% more. It's not an easy thing for them to get their head around.
But you did it. How do you think you managed to do it at that point, for that deal? Comparables? Did you give them some report? Did you create some documentation? You provided them some evidence?
There was three things. Firstly, the reason the vendor wanted 300k was 75 grand a flat was cheap. It should have been 100, but people don't want to buy many flats.
It was 25% below market value.
Exactly. Then there was doing it up. That created an uplift. And just painting somewhere and putting new carpets in doesn't cost very much money, but just gives you this feel of freshness. Someone walks in, they go, oh, this is a nice place. Yeah. It's amazing how little money you can spend that creates a totally different opinion in someone's mind. Even Rick surveyors who are experienced in this sort of stuff, they walk in, the carpet's spongy, oh, this is a nice place. And it just sort of starts to affect their sort of mentality on values. And then the third thing was the creation of the leases. That added another 15% to the value. So those three things kind of create that uplift.
Amazing. So what next?
What next was, okay, after that one, what I learned was, it's hard to fight the Rick surveyors that the property's suddenly worth so much more. The other thing that I worked out was actually buying properties where you didn't need to refurb at all is better than buying properties where you need to refurb.
Which is contrary to what we've been told, right?
Exactly.
That's one of the first lessons you learn when you go into a property course.
You add value by doing a refurb.
Add value by gutting it out, buy something that's unmortgageable, cash only, spend hundreds and thousands of pounds on it, and then...
the other thing I was taught was for you to win, the vendor has to lose. It's a fixed pie problem, and you just have to grind the vendor down, make multiple offers, and eventually one vendor's going to lose. It's going to concede and say, I just need to sell this thing, so I'm going to sell it for 25% below market value. And I never really liked that model.
It didn't sit with you.
It didn't sit with me ethically. It's not like a nice thing to do. And I didn't agree with it. I thought, well, I don't think this is a fixed pie problem. If we can make a bigger pie by working together, we can both take bigger slices. And I realised I paid £6,000 more for one of these blocks of 4 flats, but I got so much more value. I ended up with, pretty much a free block of flats because I was working with the vendor. So I thought, why don't I continue to do that? And then the other thing I learned was people are taught that property is very transactional. You buy from a vendor, that's it, you're one and done. You don't need to be nice to them. They need to lose for you to win, and you're never going to see them again. But often if you're buying these assets, which are blocks of flats, you're probably buying them from a retiring investor. And they probably have other properties. And so therefore...
And friends who might have other properties.
Exactly. And so therefore... It's not about being transactional. It's about being transformational. It's about building a relationship. So this guy that I bought these 2 blocks off, he had a block of 24 flats. And I did not want to buy 24 flats.
Did you know about this?
I knew about these. And they'd been on the market. They'd been in an Allsops auction. They were withdrawn from the Allsops auction. people want to buy one flat. They don't want to buy 24 all on one title. Okay. So I don't want to buy it at all. I didn't want to buy anything more than 200, and I've now gone to 600. And this thing was millions, right? But he couldn't sell it. And I thought, well, this is good. He's not able to sell it. So I know several things. I know, firstly, that he wants more money than the market thinks it's worth. Point number one. Point number two, he's sticking to his number. He has a magic number, and he's not dropping the price.
I mean, he's motivated, but not to the point where he wants to drop the price.
Exactly. He has a magic number in his head. He's someone I can do deals with because I've already done deals in the past. He's a business person, so I can have a sensible conversation. And then most importantly, this thing's been on the market for a year. There's been no interest, so there's zero competition.
And he loved you at this point, Toby, let's face it.
So I thought, okay, let's now have a conversation. And I decided I was going to offer him whatever he wanted, as long as it cost me nothing. So I basically wanted to buy this block for free, and I was happy to negotiate. And so, yeah, so that's how we started. And, I hadn't offered on it. It was just a conversation. And I thought, I need to show I'm serious, but also I need to know, what is this thing worth? So I paid for a private valuation, $2,500, which was cheap, 100 quid a flat, because it showed the vendor I was serious. It also enabled me to see every flat, because I could say to the vendor, unless I see every flat, I can't get this valuation. I need this valuation. And then when I got the valuation, I could share it with the vendor and say, look, the amount of money you want just doesn't make any sense. This is what it's worth today. This is what I will pay you today. But you want this much larger figure? Fine. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. You're right. I will pay you this larger figure, but I need more time to do it. He said, how much time do you need? And
so the survey happened.
And he wanted, what was it, like 800k more than the current value. So I said, 10 years. And he went, okay. So we did the deal. I paid £1 deposit.
So it was just a residential building with
it's a big block of flats.
24 flats, yeah.
Yeah.
But all on one freehold.
All on one freehold. And yeah, so I've exchanged on £1. I've become the landlords. I'm using the rents to build up the deposits. And I actually pay that deposit over to the vendor. So
within
every month.
Oh,
every month.
So every that month, goes towards the capital, the price.
I'm building up the deposit sum, and at some point within the next 10 years, when I've got that 25%, I'll just go to the bank and borrow the rest. So I'm using the building to buy the building, and I don't need to put any money into the building. It was already all let out. It was already obviously lettable.
You've exchanged at this point.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, it's just being creative, working with the other person.
Every month you're giving them pretty much all of what you make, but because there's no finance cost, right? There's no mortgage, there's no loan on it.
The way the vendor saw it was he was lending the building to me as if he was the bank. So he said, right, let's take the agreed sales price. I'm lending that money. I want an interest rate. I said, fine. What interest rate do you want? We decided 5% was reasonable. Okay, so he's getting 5% interest on the building. But every month I'm paying him the amount of money that he made from the building. So he's in the same position that he was before. He's making the same money, but not doing any work. So it's good for him. And he knows he's sold the building. So the difference between the interest payment and the amount of money I'm paying him is the prepayment towards the deposit. And just over time, that builds up to hundreds of thousands of pounds, enabling me to buy the property without having to put any capital in. I am putting capital in, but that capital is coming from the building.
And is that, so which, are you in year, 2 or 3 of this deal right now?
Yeah, year 3.
Right. And it's just sort of carrying on. And then after year 10, which is where you think you might be able to.
At any point between now and year 10, I can transact.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then why wouldn't you do the same strategy as you did to the other 4-bed flat properties where the sum of the total?
I think this was his last property that he needed to sell to retire. So he was motivated to sell it.
No, but what I mean is, couldn't you do get a surveyor in and say, if I refurb the properties, I'll add the value like you did?
I don't want to refurb the properties because refurbing the properties costs money today.
So you didn't want to spend any money on it, but you still wanted to transact with him because you felt you've got a relationship with him now. And is that why you did it? Because
who doesn't want a free block of 24 flats?
In 10 years' time, right?
Yeah. I mean, but of course the rents have gone up as well. So I'm making a margin without having to put any money in.
Amazing. Incredible. And you came up with this,
I came up with all different ideas. Initially, I was going to buy the building 6 flats at a time and try and buy them cheap, then wait a bit and then refinance them and then use that money to buy the next 6.
So you thought of all sorts of things.
I thought of all sorts of options, and then I thought, well, are there 4 lenders out there who would be happy me buying 6 here, 6 here, 6 here? And it was clunky,
messy.
It was messy, and this was just a more straightforward strategy.
Amazing. So in 7 years' time from now, you'll have this block of flats, which you've paid for already, and you could just get the cash flow from it. What about, would you need to mortgage it or anything?
I will mortgage it when I complete on it.
Right.
But at the moment, when I go to the bank, they'll say, well, where's your 25%? I said, well, I already
paid
own
it.
25%. I've already paid it.
Right.
So I don't need to come up with any money. I've already...
Literally, literally none of your own money in the deal. There is money. You've paid the right money. In fact, you've paid over the asking price for it, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, the guy can...
But it's inflation and all of that as well, right? In 10 years' time.
The guy goes to the pub, he boasts to his mates that, I found this guy, he's a real idiot. He's agreed to buy my property for £800,000 more than it's worth. He's paying me every month the amount of money I used to make from the property, and I don't have to do any work.
But
Fantastic. I go to my mates and go, I've got this great deal. I've managed to buy this block of flats for no money. So, look, it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Both parties are happy. For someone retiring, knowing they're getting a consistent amount of money every month is really valuable. They can plan on that.
Yeah.
So this guy knows that for the next 10 years, he's getting the same amount of money every month that he was making without having to do any work, without having to insure the building, maintain the building, worry about voids. He can retire.
Amazing. So you're doing all these amazing creative deals. Are you still in your job right now?
No. So I quit my job when I got to 25 years.
So you had the 5-year plan.
I did the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan worked. That was 3 years ago. So the vast majority, so the 2 blocks of 8 flats, that I was doing while I was still employed. The refurb happened when I was still employed. I think the completion was just after I'd left.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, the vast majority of my portfolio I purchased while I was still in full-time employment. It's easy to do,
I think there's too many courses or too many trainers out there thinking, leave your job, get into property full-time. But I don't think now is the time for that, because we know property was not as amazing as it used to be. But you are amazingly making it work with little or less money of your own, but also at the same time making win-win solutions. So is there any other interesting things you could tell me all about?
Yeah, and the other strategy is vendor finance. So there was... in my same investment area, 2 shops, 6 flats on Rightmove, hadn't sold for a year. I thought, right, now is the time for me to go see it, because I can see what the magic number is. It's the asking price. No one's willing to pay the asking price. So if I turn up, have a look at it, and I'm the only person making an offer, and it's at the asking price, the vendor's going to say yes. And then the vendor's going to be so delighted. I'm going to say, for me to pay the asking price, I need a bit of flexibility from you. Is that okay? Well, tell me what the flexibility is. So on this one, it was total vendor finance. So I paid a 1% deposit. It's £1 million, so that's 10 grand. That was really to pay the estate agent. Then I borrowed 99% of the money from the vendor. He'd paid off the mortgage, so he was in a position to do that. He now gets a first charge. So it goes from being the owner to being the lender with a first charge over the building he previously owned. I pay him the amount of money he was making before, which I get from the rents. But the money I'm paying him is paying down the borrowing from him. And after a couple of years, I paid off 150 grand, and I can just go to a bank and just refinance. And so long as the property's gone up by about 10%, then a 75% loan will mean that I've got all the money to repay the originally 99% that I borrowed from him.
Right.
Since then, the rent's gone up by 40%. So I've been
so
able to uplift the
you bought a
rents.
£1 million apartment.
A mixed-use block.
Oh, a mixed-use block.
Of flats and shops.
All under one freehold.
Yeah.
You bought it you agreed the price at £1 million, which nobody was buying. It was on the market for a year. Did done an exchange with delayed completion?
No.
You haven't even exchanged.
I did simultaneous exchange and completion. So I now own the property.
Right. And then what did you, because obviously typically you'd have to pay him, but you haven't paid because he's given you a loan to pay him back.
He's given me a mortgage.
Yeah.
And every month.
Also, there's no bank.
He is the bank.
Yeah. But there's no like.
I made him into the bank.
Right. So he is the bank. Okay. And then?
That's it. I pay an interest and capital repayment mortgage.
Right.
The interest is £1 a month. The capital repayment is what the rent was when I took it over. Right. So I'm using the building.
So no interest either?
£1 a month.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Pretty minimal. Yeah. So I'm using the building to buy the building. I'm using the building to pay down the loan. And then I'm going to refinance onto traditional lending in due course.
Wow. So there's no time limit to this. He hasn't.
It was a 3-year deal.
Oh, 3-year deal. So you're in year 2, presumably.
Year one and a half at the moment. Yeah.
Very clever. And I think, like you said, finding these sellers who can't, for whatever reason, take the price down, whether it's something that they, it's something in their mind which they have to achieve. It could be, something they want to give away as their legacy, whatever it is. Then I think this strategy is absolutely incredible.
Ask me how long it took from deciding what the deal was and completion.
How long?
7 days.
Oh, seriously? Because you paid him what he wanted.
It was just signing 2 documents.
Which is?
One document was a legal charge.
Yeah.
The other document was
exchange.
a loan agreement. Yeah. Done.
Wow.
Really straightforward because we haven't got a RIC surveyor involved. We haven't got a bank involved. I don't have to give my inside leg measurements. It's just between me and this individual.
But did you not think it needed a structural survey or anything? But it looked fine to you?
It's been there for 100 years. It's been rented out for 30 years. I went round and had a look. I didn't feel the need. I do get structural surveyors in, especially with the distressed properties I was buying. But no, I didn't feel... But
this looks good.
This looks good. I only need 10 grand to buy a £1 million property. I have to pay stamp duty as well, so it's not totally free.
Yeah.
But, it's a 99% loan to value.
And also you paid commercial stamp duty, 5%, which is...
I did. And one of the reasons we did everything in 7 days was we transacted a day before multiple dwellings relief disappeared. So that halved my stamp duty as well.
Yeah. In addition to commercial, then you also had the multiple dwelling relief. So what is it? Is it like shops and
flats? Yeah,
above?
you pay 1%, which is...
And you must get a good income from them, right? In order for you to be able to pay it down in 3 years, which is about 15%. It's about 150 grand. So 50 grand a year is your income from it at the moment.
It's
roughly. No,
it's more. I think it's because although I'm paying the loan down, I'm also making
something on top.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. So tell us all about, are you going to teach us these strategies? What's your you've done these incredible deals and I think you've been very successful in everything that you've done so far. Although I know in your head you didn't think the one up north was struck. I still think. So what have you done so far? So what's happening to those 10 HMOs that you've got so far?
So I set up a group of HMO investors in the area. Because
the one up north.
Up north, we were all getting ripped off by the local letting agents, and I realised that individually we were very weak, but collectively very strong. So I set up this group. Didn't want to do it. It's not really my strategy. I'm not a shouty person, but I realised I needed to take a leadership role because no one else was, and that made an instant change. The letting agent dropped their rates for everybody by 1.5% overnight because suddenly I'd changed the power balance. And then this opportunity came along to sell the HMOs to a real estate investment trust. So with my group of fellow investors, I basically organised selling 43 HMOs to one real estate investment trust.
How did you find this real estate investment trust?
Interesting. What happened was I set this group up. There was a code of conduct, and one investor, basically didn't adhere to the code of conduct because he started slagging off the letting agent, which was one of the rules that we weren't to do. And so I had to remove him from the group. And I had a conversation with him. He was like, yeah, I totally know this is what's going to happen. Anyway, I thought I'd never hear from him again. But a year later, he came back and said, I've actually sold my HMOs to this real estate investment trust. They want more. Would you like to sell yours, or could you introduce other people? And I thought, well, let me get some valuations. I might sell 1, 2. When I got the valuation, I thought, right, I'm selling the lot, because a real estate investment trust has got all this capital, and they can transact multiple properties at a time. They were doing deals of 30 HMOs on a single transaction. So it enabled me to sell my HMOs and also help other people who wanted to exit. And they were paying, I thought, about 20% more than the market rate. So
Wow.
it is a good way to
When
exit.
was this? In
2021, 2022, yeah.
Right. So now you've got all this cash.
Yeah.
What are you doing with it? Because you haven't paid for any of these properties and you're doing all creative strategies.
So I did 2 things with the cash. I started to buy down south. So that was
the one that you were buying with the supported living.
And
the
then
council.
I decided to diversify, right? And I thought, let me try different investments. Now, there's no point diversification itself does not mitigate risk. What mitigates risk is knowing what you're doing. And so I was very focused on property, but I knew what I was doing. I then diversified into all different asset classes I knew nothing about. And it was a disaster.
Are you talking about
basically,
stocks and shares?
yeah, all different sorts of things. And pretty much most of it lost money. So it just goes to show that diversification without skill and knowledge is not a good strategy. Rockefeller said, put all your eggs in one basket and then don't take your eyes off that basket. That is one way to mitigate risk.
Yeah.
And so, I do have other investments, but the vast majority is property. And I understand property, and I have diversification across the industry sector of property.
Yes.
I have different. I've got commercial, I've got residential, I've got buy-to-lets. I've still got some HMOs, and I have different types of tenant types as well. So I have some diversification, but within property. And I think that's a better way to diversify than stepping out into things that you don't understand.
And I think playing to your strengths is very important, because I know I've always been thinking, and like now the gold and silver, like ETFs or gold and silver generally as commodities, copper, they are literally shooting through the roof, right? And I was thinking the other day, because I'm part of this group and everyone's invested in gold and silver, and I'm like, what am I doing? But, as you said, you need to know what you're doing and you need to follow it. And with these sort of stocks and shares, you really need to know.
You need conviction, and the conviction's only going to come from spending time studying the assets.
Learning.
Once you spend 100 hours studying something, you're now in the position that you can take a view and stick to that view. You're going to have that conviction. I had 10 years where I didn't do anything. I was too afraid. Work ethic eliminates fear. So the more time you spend on something, the more actions you take, the more you work at it, the less fear you have about it, because the more you know about it,
Absolutely.
the more comfortable you come.
So what's next? I know you made all this money, but you lost a little bit of money, but then you're back into these amazing creative strategies, which I think you're kind of underrating, to be honest, because I think what you're doing is actually quite a genius idea. And a lot of beginners would love to be in that position where, you've done these creative deals. So what do you think a beginner who's starting out in 2026 should be doing with, little or less money of their own? They're in a full-time job, but they need that secondary income to get, kick-started. What do you think? What would you recommend?
They should surround themselves with people who do property. So go to Property Me. It's a
Titans.
very small.
Come to
Titans. It's a very small cost. Stick the date in the diary and stick to it, because you start to meet other people. You start to gain knowledge. It changes your mindset. And it's the fear that prevents you doing anything. It's that analysis paralysis that you have because you haven't done it before. But if you surround yourself with people who do it, the fear kind of dissipates.
Absolutely.
And my advice always for people who are getting started is buy a property, buy a house, buy a flat, take action. How wrong can it go if you buy a property that's mortgageable and the bank gives you a mortgage?
Yeah.
You're
leveraging anyway, right? You're leveraging 75% of the bank's money, and you could borrow the 25%. You could get some below market value from a motivated seller. There's lots of different things you can do.
Your first deal is going to be your worst deal, but that doesn't matter because it's your first deal. You're also leveraging the bank's due diligence. If they're going to lend you the money, it's pretty likely that this asset is not a lemon. And it's pretty likely that the sales price is a sensible sales price, because otherwise the bank would retain lending. So that's what I would advise people to do. And you can learn by doing. you don't have to go and spend 20 grand on some property education. You can spend that 20 grand on your deposit and your legal fees and buy a property. And you just learn by doing. And then once you've done it once, the only thing that changes is the purchase price. You still need to have a mortgage. You still need to go through the conveyancing. You understand what the process is. You still need to have all the, a painter, a decorator, a gas safety person, a plumber. You just need to transact once, and then you're in a really strong position to go again. You don't need to have the best deal.
Yeah.
It could be a deal that isn't money in,
Simple
money out.
deal. It's just going through that process and learning from it. But also, I think equally, as you pointed out, mindset is huge, because when you surround yourself with the right people, like you did, when after those 10 years when you actually took action, is important. And trying to avoid analysis paralysis, because you can think of every single risk in the world, but if you don't take action on it, like you said, what can you...
And you've got to compare yourself to where you're at. So if you've got 20 grand of savings, 30 grand of savings, what's it currently doing?
Yeah.
And if you invested that as a 25% deposit in a property that doesn't need very much doing at all, you could rent it out within a month, and you could get a mortgage on it, what kind of return are you going to get? And, if the return is higher than what the money's currently getting doing whatever it's doing, then it makes sense to do it. It makes more sense to do it than to not do it. Plus, you also have the capital growth as well.
But I think there's opportunities. I know Renters' Rights Act is coming up, and presumably, what are you doing, like in your business, to be compliant? Presumably, you're already compliant, or you're kind of getting there.
Yeah, I mean, all systems are kind of like a deflated balloon, and if you squeeze them somewhere, the air just travels and pops out somewhere else. So, what the government wants to do is to give greater security of tenure. But by giving greater security of tenure, what it's doing is going to cause rents to rise, and it's going to make it much harder for the most vulnerable in society to secure a tenancy. The people who are going to benefit from this are the people who've got large amounts of money and basically don't really need the security because they can go and rent somewhere else. The people this disadvantages are those who don't earn so much, and now landlords are going to be much more picky about who they accept through referencing to take a property. So I think what this means for landlords generally is over time rents will increase, and profitability will return to the buy-to-let sector.
I think that's important, right? Because capital values aren't going up. We know it's going up by 2, 3, 4% every year, which is pretty much the level of inflation. So technically, they're not going up at all. If anything, a lot of prime central London and some of the London boroughs are going down if you take inflation into account. So what's the next 5 years for you then? Let's try and wrap this up. But I want to know, what's the next vision for your next 5 years? So I know you love planning. You're very much strategic in your thinking as well. So tell us all about what the plan is.
So I'm continuing this creative way of buying properties because I don't need very much money to do it. So that just makes a lot of sense.
Find motivated sellers on the portals. Properties have been on the market for 6, 12, 18 months or whatever.
Exactly. Things that no one wants to buy, then just go and have a conversation. That's much, much easier. You can do it through agents. You don't need to go round agents. They are actually there to help you if something isn't selling. They become more your agent with a vendor than the other way around. So continue doing that. But also, I want to teach people how to make their money go further. Property is becoming more difficult. You need to get more skilled. And these creative techniques are not particularly difficult. They're just hard for people to get their head around it. It's a mindset thing. So later this year, I'll be starting an online course for people to learn more about this and have group coaching sessions so they can apply the skills that I use to their own portfolios.
And I think that's going to be very valuable, especially to someone who's feeling a bit stuck in their career, maybe even landlords who've sold out and want to do something totally different. Maybe you can use your strategy to even flip those properties if you don't want to keep, you don't want to be in the rental sector. You've done enough. You think regulation is killing it, or you don't want to be a landlord anymore. You could just buy these sort of blocks of flats that you've bought and flip it, right? You don't have to hold it if you don't want to as well. So,
I mean, I quite like the buy-to-let model because, which is a flat or a house, because it's so adaptable. If you bespoke something into an HMO, it's never going to be anything other than an HMO. But if you just do the buy-to-let model, you could just flip, and that could be bought in the open market by first-time buyer. You could put it on a 5-year lease with some kind of provider.
Airbnb it.
You could
corporate
Airbnb
let.
it in service accommodation. You've got lots of different things you can do with exactly the same assets. You don't need to do anything to the assets to go down a different strategy. And I like that flexibility, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to switch over from HMO to a more sort of vanilla buy-to-let model, but not necessarily have to do buy-to-lets, but just use the building in a different way.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I think you've been amazing. I've really learned a lot from you today, and I'm quite inspired. So I'm looking forward to you starting this online course pretty soon, so we can get started with that creative strategies. And really like the way you think. I think you're very, very underrated. You definitely are the dark horse in property development, and I look forward to what your next 5 years look like. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Toby, and really incredible to learn a lot from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, if you enjoyed watching that, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment for regular property updates.